Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of ButterflyLiving.org's interview with one of the great authors featured. And today I have Heather Jeffrey. Hello, Heather.
Hi, Mary. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you're here because I think your topic is timely. Actually, I think it's probably always timely. It is When God Seems Silent, Finding Purpose in a Season of Waiting. I needed this article probably as much as everyone reading it does. So
Truth
let's
be
jump
told, so
in.
do I.
Let's jump in and talk about the story. You talk about a story with your daughter, and it's what I guess motivated you to write this article. Can you just give us a brief, I guess, small introduction into how you got the idea?
Yeah, so my daughter and I, there's this little it's called French Twist. It's a little crepe shop right in our downtown, small town, Main Street. And we wait every year until January because they come out with this cannoli crepe as the special of the month in January. And
Yum.
it is so good. By the time we were going this time, we had already tried to go two other times, and either they were closed for renovations or the line was long. So this time we went, and my daughter was like, "Oh, Mom, can we please just stay and wait?" I am, I'm a working single mom, so time is of the essence. I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. That line looks like it's really long. It was out the door." But we decided to wait, and it was going to be worth the wait. So while we're standing in line in the beginning, I'm just thinking, hmm, this is not really how I want to spend my day. I have other things planned. We're going to spend an hour in line. What are we not going to have time for? And then I just felt this calm come over me and the Holy Spirit just gently saying, embrace it. So I did. And what happened next was just wonderful because my daughter just starts talking to me, asking questions, striking up conversations. And if anybody out there has a high school daughter, they don't willingly share a lot of information, especially not at once. But it was just wonderful. There was no bedrooms, no phones, no earbuds, no barriers whatsoever. So standing there in this line with strangers, we just had the greatest connection, the greatest conversation. And I could just feel God telling me the whole time, this is what I had planned. You may have planned a short line, crepes and coffee, go do the rest of your day. This is what I had planned.
That's
And
so good. It was like a pause you did not want.
yes. So then it got me thinking, I later ran into another friend while I was there, and we ended up planning a coffee date and making some really great things happen as a result of that coffee date. And I kept wondering what would have happened if we didn't wait in that line and we turned around and went somewhere else, got breakfast to go or anything else, we would have missed what God had planned for us. And then I start thinking, wow, where else in our lives does the same thing happen?
All the time. We're
Yes,
we're in such a speedy, I call it the Starbucks world. I want my
exactly.
order, I want it the way I want it, and I want it quickly.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that story. It really made me think. And you also share about Zachariah and Elizabeth and Abraham and Sarah. And their stories are intertwined because they're both waiting and waiting for a child. What can we learn from these two couples and how they waited for something they wanted so badly?
Right. I think we're all familiar with Abraham and Sarah, and we all know what happened. Both of these women, Sarah and Elizabeth, were waiting decades for a child. We're not talking about months or years. We are talking decades. There are very few things I've had to wait decades for, Mary. I don't know that I have that in me.
Right, me
But
either.
so when we're looking at Elizabeth and Zechariah, the first thing that we're told in the Bible is that they were righteous. And then we find out that they were elderly without children. And in that time period, that was essentially the worst position you could be in is not having children. It was a stigma. Society looked upon you as if you had done something wrong. And it was just how one generation cared for another. So Elizabeth had no protection if something happened to her husband. But yet, here she was being so obedient and faithfully serving God. Her husband was a priest. They were showing up for duty. She was serving the local community. And we get the feeling they were very respected and known as faithful people in their time. And, I contrast how I would do in that situation, waiting decades. I don't know if I could be quite as faithful or patient. Now, we don't know what happened behind closed doors.
Right. But it did say they were righteous.
Yes.
So I like that you pointed out that they were respected. They continued to do what God called them to do,
Mhm.
but they still yearned for this. They didn't give up that desire. So I love how you tied that into your story.
Yeah. And one thing that we have to really look at sometimes is waiting eventually, in a lot of cases, turns into acceptance. And that's
Mm.
where we have to live with it. And none of us love that. But Elizabeth, eventually, as you get older, she had to convert into acceptance. And she wasn't bitter. She wasn't any of the things that I imagine I would be in her shoes. And then you look at Sarah, and don't get me wrong, I love my girl Sarah because I've been in her shoes as well, trying to rush and make something happen that wasn't happening fast enough. But in contrast, she took things into her own hands and tried to kind of manufacture it herself by giving her servant Hagar to Abraham to have a child with.
Guilty.
And
I didn't do that, but I have done tried
no,
to manufacture.
I think we've all tried I call it manipulating God. You try to, okay, God, if I do this, this, and this, then you'll give me what you want, or what I want rather. But what I just said is what happens. God gives us what he wants. And I truly believe he wants the desires of our heart, which is, us to be happy, but he wants those desires to reflect him a little more than us,
That's so true.
for
And I like
sure.
how you said acceptance comes in the waiting. I think
Yeah.
that's so important, Heather. Sometimes we may not get all the things we're waiting for, but we
Right.
can get acceptance and we can increase our trust that God is in control and faithful. So I love that in your article as well. And patience is a virtue. It's one I have to work on all the time.
Hmm.
And you have this quote that I think is great. I'm left to wonder how many of our waiting seasons are shaping something we cannot yet see, a purpose way beyond what we dare to imagine. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you got this quote about waiting patiently for God and purpose?
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about Elizabeth and all the years that she and her husband had longed for children. And eventually she had got to that acceptance part where I'm older, this isn't going to happen. She never could have imagined that God was going to give her not only a son, but a son who was going to be the segue to the Messiah they were all waiting for. And just letting that knowledge
John the
kind of sink
Baptist, in
in.
case.
Yes, John the Baptist. And she never could have imagined that. So then we translate that into our own lives. Okay, we're in a waiting season. We're all waiting for something,
Yes. Probably
whether it's,
multiple things.
well, right. And some seasons of waiting are short. Like I remember waiting to hear back from my daughter's college acceptance, and we were praying over, her college direction. That was a shorter wait. Maybe didn't feel so short for her, but that was a shorter wait compared to years or decades of other things that we wait for.
Mhm.
So just taking that and, Elizabeth had no idea. And then my favorite Bible verse in the entire Bible is Ephesians 3:20. If you know me talk about the Bible much, you're going to hear me say E320 moments. And that God can do anything above and beyond our greatest expectations. And it just blows my mind that we can't even imagine the things that he wants to do. We just don't have the capacity for it as humans.
You're
And
right.
Elizabeth had no capacity of even imagining what she would, eventually be doing. And then to know that her relative Mary was actually going to give birth to the Messiah. So there's just so much in her story that I think of the decades that she spent longing for a child, and God's just sitting in heaven saying, "Be still, my child. It's coming. You have no idea what I'm doing, but it is going to blow your mind." And we're no different. He likes
That's
to do the
so
same for us.
encouraging. Yeah, I encourage anyone to go read those stories. It really encouraged me. And the way the articles on butterflyliving.org, and also go to the Bible and read those two stories. I think if you're in a season of waiting, and I know some things are so hard to wait for, that's why I think your article will help a lot of people. So thanks for sharing all that and give us some places we can connect with you, Heather. Where are you writing? Where are you on social media?
Yeah, so my website is heatherjeffrey.com, and that's got all my resources and writing, but Instagram is where I share a lot, and also on Facebook, and the handle for those is straightenyourcrown.one for Instagram and just straighten your crown for Facebook. And Straighten Your Crown is the blog that I started several years ago, and I've just kept that name just because I love it so much.
It's a great name. And Heather's also featured on Life Changing Stories, a collaboration we did with 34 authors, and the profits go to Compassion International. So she has a great story in that book as well that's available on Amazon. So thank you, Heather, for being here. I really appreciate you sharing your story online and taking a few minutes to chat.
You are so welcome. Thank you for inviting me and having me share my story.
And if you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe. We're pretty new. Bye bye. Thank you.